So I got my doors in, and as you can see, there's no bore for the lever or knob, so I'm gonna have to bore that out, and there's no mortises for the hinges to connect to the jamb. So I'll have to do that too, but we went ahead and we're gonna paint this actually, the walls and the ceiling. We usually don't paint like ever. This is probably like the second time since I've been in business that we've actually painted walls, but it's so small of a job for painting that I just told her, she asked if we do painting, I told her no, and she said, what about just this room? And I said, we'll do it. So, but we're rolling that with Benjamin Moore, and then I'm gonna have Benjamin Moore Advanced sprayed onto the wainscot and the doors. And the doors are really cool because they're really just real simple, like the wainscoting that we're doing. So what we do is we put 1-inch masking tape, then we hit that on top of that with a 4-foot long pre-taped Scotch blue painter's tape, and then we put the drop cloth up to that. And even more so in the painting area where my sprayer is and where the roller is, I have plastic under it, a big drop cloth, which is this one, a small drop cloth, and then we have a piece of leftover paneling to prevent any bleed through. But that's it right there. He's rolling it. It's white over white, so it'll only be one coat. And then the walls are going to be another shade of gray, and then the wainscoting obviously white. So that should be it for the nail filling. What I'm going to do now is do the orbital sander and just kind of knock all that heavier nail fill down where I put it on with the spreader. And I don't leave it on too heavy, but I do make it a little bit above the surface. That way, whenever I sand it, it kind of flattens out with the actual wood. It says it can be sanded in 1 to 5 hours. And since I put it on so light, we got to let this dry for an hour anyways, because we got other things we got to do. We're going to paint these walls. So yeah, we're moving right along here, and next thing is to orbital, and I'll do that here in a little bit. Little update for you. We went ahead and painted the walls, and he's actually doing the caulking on the ceiling. What we do is we do a blue tape, and then we'll do a caulking. We do this on trim too. We just do masking tape and caulking, and then you'll just caulk on the tape and then paint on the caulked side, and you'll have a laser sharp line. So you can see how straight these lines get with that caulking and taping method. So those are some really laser sharp lines, and there's no way I could do that with the freehand. I'm not that talented, but you can see how this room is coming together now. We got the ceiling painted white, the walls painted classic gray, and then once the trim is all white, this room is really gonna pop. I'm gonna have a left and a right hand swing. So it's real easy to figure that out. If you push the door away from you and it swings to the left, so if say the door is closed and you push it open, if it swings to the left, it's a left hand swing. If it swings to the right, it's a right hand swing. So I need to do one of each because I'm doing these closets right here. So I'm gonna have to bore a hole and then mortise the hinges. These are 6'8" doors. That's how tall they are. And the standard 3 hinge measurements for 6'8" doors are 7, 36 1/4, and 65 1/2. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to mark on the right side of the right left-handed swing door and the left side of the right-handed swing door, those measurements. So I'm gonna just take my pin and do 7, 36 1/4, 65 1/2. So now that I have those marked, what I'll do is I'm gonna take a combination square and just mark the depth where the hinge stops. I know this isn't a good view for you guys, but I gotta kind of hurry up just so I can get these ready for spraying. All right, I'll show you what I did here. So with these doors, I came down 7 inches and made a straight line, which is that line right there. Okay, then I took this combination square with the depth set to 1/4 inch and then marked it going down the edge of the door. So now what I'll do is I'll just transfer that line over to make this straight across with the square. And then once I do that, I'll just take the old hinge and set it right there on those 2 lines and trace it out using those 2 definite lines as guides. So, and I'm just gonna freehand cut that on my little trim router. And it's gonna be, I'm gonna set the depth of the router bit to the depth of this hinge, which is 1/8 of an inch. Another thing you want to check is that your door is not upside down. Because these doors could go however you want them. So I'm looking at a picture she sent me to make sure I'm not doing them upside down. Okay, I'm good to go. Yeah, some of these doors, you know, somebody sees a picture and, you know, really they go this way, you know, but somebody goes on the Pinterest or something on house and they see somebody that hung a door upside down and they're wondering why yours isn't upside down, because to them it's not upside down. To them they saw it in the picture and it was beautiful. But there's nothing wrong with that. I do whatever I'm told, basically. They say jump, I say how high on the way up. I'm gonna grab my hinge. So with those 2 reference points, let me get this thing in focus. With those 2 reference points, the 7 inches down from the top, this hinge in the 1/4 inch depth right here, you just match up that. And as long as you're straight on your 1/4 inch depth that you marked with the combination square, you can trace that out. Right, so what I'm gonna do here with this little trim router, I'm just gonna take that hinge and adjust my bit depth to be right at the same depth as that hinge. And I've already got that set. As a matter of fact, this is really all I use this for. I use my other big rigid router if I really want to route something. But so this bit stays in here. I do not know what this bit is called. Somebody has to know. It's slipping my mind right now. But I'm gonna take that bit right there and just trace this. We're gonna go back to elementary school and we're gonna trace the lines. No, it's not that. It does take some practice. It's not elementary, but it's not that hard either. I'm gonna show you one because I'm gonna need John actually to hold the vacuum on the rest of these, but we'll show you one without the vacuum. That's pretty good. And now I got to do that for the rest of these. But that's how easy it is. You'll get a tight fit. There's not any play in there. It just takes a steady hand with that trim router, and that's why I like to use a trim router. It feels more like a pin, because if you try to do it, and I have tried it with the big router where you hold it with two hands, but this one really feels like a pin, like you're tracing it out. But I just thought I would share that with you, and that's how you do those. And then real quick, I'll show you that depth is really important of the router bit, that the depth of it is set. Because if you have this hinge right here sticking out really far above this surface, you're not going to get a good close. It's going to be really tight. So right there, as long as it's flush, you'll be good to go. But yeah, I think these came out really good. It's not too hard to freehand cut. I wish there was a tool, some kind of jig, or I'm sure there's something out there. Seems like Craig or somebody would make something for it. We got our doors in now. Now that we have the all mortised for the hinges. Now the next thing we're going to do is bore the hole for the lever or for the knob. You can use lever or knob. It's going to be the same thing. But the way I do this is pretty simple. I use this little jig from Milwaukee. Good old Milwaukee. It's their door jig. And this is going to allow you to bore out that hole perfectly, and I'll show you how to do that. So this jig right here, you can see when I slide that from left to right, it's going to give me a reading on the top. So right here, the setting that it's set on when it's slid to the left is 2 3/4. So that's usually your commercial doors. Most commercial doors, the bore is 2 3/4 from the edge of the door. So since we're doing residential, we're gonna do 2 3/8. It's gonna be closer over here. And another thing is the way this little jig works, you can just unwind this clamp here and it's gonna open up to get you bigger doors. So again, 2 3, or these are 1 3/8. Mostly all residential doors are 1 3/8 thick, but the commercial doors are 1 3/4. So you can do commercial or residential with this little jig. It's really cool to have. Otherwise, if you didn't have this, what you could do is just take the old door, lay it on top of this one, and make sure you start from the top down, where you lay it out, and then trace that hole from the old door on here. I've done that when I didn't know about this, like one time. So one thing you need to know is what we call the strike. And the strike is where that little back set comes out of the door and catches on the latch in there. So what you're gonna do is figure out what they are. Ours are 44 inches. Again, mostly all residential doors are 44 inches from the top down. So what I'm gonna do, I'm going to come in here with my Sharpie and mark it right on 44. So now here's a pretty cool part. Let me make sure I have this to 2 3/8. And then what we'll do is, if you can see in there, there's an arrow in there. So I'm going to tighten this down and get it close to where it's clamping this door. Okay, so with that arrow in there, what I'm going to do is slide this up and down until I find that line. And I think I'm gonna have to, oh, there it is. Where are we at? I know you probably can't see that, but that is dead on right there, because I didn't make the mark really dark. So now this is good to go. I have a place to drill out For the back set, I have a place to drill out for the hardware in the knob, and I'm going to use this bit to go through here, and then I'm going to use the smaller bit to go in through here. Okay, now I'm all set up with my jig. I'm going to tighten that down. I'll turn this over here so you can see it. I know I keep moving it for you, but so I'll twist that all the way, and now this thing is not going anywhere. All right, one thing you need to do before you start cutting out or drilling this out, come from the top down. You see this line right here? It's at 44 inches. I'm good to go. Because remember, you get one chance with this. Now, one cool thing about the way that they have this set up, I'll take that piece of wood out here in a minute, but they have a depth stop in there. That's that black thing. And what that prevents you from doing is, you know, I'm going to start drilling right here in my guide. That'll prevent me from going and all the way out the back. Because when you drill through something, the back side that you drill through, it's always going to have that tear out. So this thing actually won't let you drill through it, the entire door. And also, I'll show you when after I drill this, it makes you a perfect guide on the back side to drill through the rest. It's really cool. So there's that depth stop. You can see it in there now. And that's gonna stop me. It's gonna stop me right there. Let's try to turn this so you can see it. But the depth stop will stop me with like an 1/8 before I get out through the back side. Very cool idea. So I'm gonna slide in there and just center it and slowly start it up. Let it dig its way in there. Okay, so there's the stopping point. And then, let me open this door so you can see this. So what that leaves me with right here is a perfect guide hole to get started with the rest of this drilling. And the reason that's so important is because you need something for this big hole dozer to go through. This one, I'm just gonna go slow and kind of carve it out. All right, there it is. So then and that's what you end up with. Alrighty, so now that we got our spot for our lever, we're gonna throw in the smaller hole dozer. We're gonna come in for the back set. Now this one, even if you blow all this out, it doesn't matter. So there's no depth stop on this one, because you blow this out, no one's ever gonna see it. So I'm just gonna work this into there. And you never, once you drill that first one out, you don't wanna move the jig. So you leave the jig in place, and that will allow you to have it where your hardware is perfect. Just gonna start slow and kind of carve my way in there. So you can see how I have the perfect hole for my lever, and then I have this hole for the back set, but that hole needs to accept the hardware of the back set. So I'm going to take this little, this is the only Ryobi tool I have. I'm sorry, I gotta, but basically this little thing right here will fit in here, and then once it's in there, there's a sharp metal edge around this tool, and then you make sure you're straight. You make sure you're good to go. And then what you'll do is you'll just tap this with a big hammer, and then it's gonna make an outline for you. So I'll do that next. So what I'm gonna do is hit this. Just tap it. I recommend a big hammer because you're gonna wanna only hit it a few times. If you sit there and bang on it with a smaller hammer, it's really gonna depend on how good you're holding it. So when you know, if you hit it, your hand, this hand might move. So if you just take a bigger hammer, smack it once or twice. It's good to go. Now it's worked in there. And you saw how I can just leave it there now too. So I'm going to say that's deep enough for the hardware. That gives you a chisel line. So now I'll take a chisel and work all of that outline out of there. And we have a perfect spot for our back set. Well, we just got inspected by the homeowner and we passed inspection. Not only does she like it, she absolutely loves it. And just look at this wall right here. I mean, this is amazing with these new doors that we just put in and the way there's all these really clean lines. And I really like the way this turned out. It just looks amazing. But what we're gonna do right now, since the primer's dry, we turned the heat up in here to like 80 and it was pouring out of that vent like crazy. So we did that to speed up the process of the primer drying. It's already a quick dry primer, so it's not gonna hurt the finish. But that just helped the primer dry and really cure a lot faster. So what we're gonna do now is take these sanding sponges that we love and we're gonna go and just pass over everything because that primer leaves it just a little bit gritty and it gives you really a nice surface to lay your top coat on. But you definitely gotta knock it down with a sanding sponge. So that's what we're gonna do right now and we'll get started. So I'm about to start spraying here and not using an extension, just gonna be using the regular gun. But before I do get started, I'm gonna do a little fan test. I always do this, just to see if I like the size of the fan and just to see how my paint, the consistency of it that's coming out. And I always do that on a plastic or something I got like that. So I know this question is probably gonna come up, is about the hardware. So most of the time what the builders do here in Texas is they will actually leave the hinges on and have their painter spray the hinges. So most houses that we go into, they're gonna have painted hinges just because you can see how easy I could spray this side of the door, open it up on this side, spray this side, and it can hang and dry there and it already is where it is. So it does make it a lot easier. However, in this job, I'm really just hanging these up right now to make sure they're operating, they have a good reveal, and also so I can spray them like how the builders spray them in the hanging up like that. It's a lot easier. But we will come back and put new hardware on after the paint dries. Not today though. She's gonna get really nice, I think we're doing oil rubbed bronze hardware on the hinges and levers. So anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and spray this door and I'm actually gonna put my respirator on. That's all the talking I really need to do. Okay, so pretty simple. I'm just gonna go and spray that and overlap each pass by 50% and we're good to go on that. Now I won't actually close this door all the way because it is wet on that side. I don't want it to hit the door stop, so I'll leave it right there and we should be good to go. I'll show you how I spray these two sections real quick. So I'm gonna spray this section the little corner there, and then I'll spray around the casing. And really the whole job is the same spray pattern. All right, so that is it for the nursery project. We are really pleased with the way this one came out, and I especially like this wall right here. This wall where we replaced these two doors, they just had some 6-panel textured doors, and we took those out and gave them the solid core shaker doors, and this really makes a huge difference. I especially like this wall too because we have these 3 small panels in between the doors, and we're getting a lot of shadows. So we got a window right there, lots of shadows bouncing off this wall right here. Another cool thing about this wall, we have a bigger panel, a medium panel, and then a smaller panel. So that's just how the builder built it, and we laid this out around it, and that's how it came out. So it's just really cool stuff like that that you'll find that wasn't even planned, and I see that kind of stuff, so it's pretty cool. Other than that, if you've been following the series, we showed you everything on how to do this job, how we did it. Basically, it's a real simple process. All we did was the first day we laid out the entire room and how we thought we were going to put the panels. We lasered off our line to get a level line. Then we installed these 2 door casings. We had a window casing, and then we came up with the back band on the sides of the door, and we lasered those off to get them to the right height. So we lasered those back bands off and cut them right there to the toe of the miter. And then we figured out all of our panel layout. We put a eighth inch Yucca board on the wall to eliminate the texture. And then we just built stiles and rails, board and batten wainscoting with a slightly different edge this time on the bottom of the baseboard. And that was something that she showed me in a picture where the baseboard kind of came out a little bit more than the wainscoting. So that's actually a first time for us to do that. And we accomplished that by ripping down a 1x8 to 6 inches and shimming out the back behind it, and then it made us a bigger blocky baseboard, and then we put a cove molding on top of that. But really it's just this wall that really pops to me. I mean, I could see, maybe putting some kind of neat little picture right there. And that's another thing, we painted these walls. We usually don't paint walls, but we went ahead and did this is a Benjamin Moore classic gray and flat. This is a Benjamin Moore simply white and satin, but I really like the contrast, the real soft colors. Obviously for a newborn baby, that's kind of a soft color that makes a lot of sense. And then one other thing I'll address real quick is this panel right here. It's the smallest panel of the room, and the way I see the panel layout is if by the time you put your 2 stiles in, which is the vertical pieces, in the inside panel that's left over is bigger than your stiles, then you get a panel there. If you put the 2 stiles in and it squeezes it to like 1 inch inside, you just put a full board in here. So let's say I put these 2 in, let's say this door was a little bit closer to the wall, and I went to put them in and it left me like a 1/2 inch panel, then I would just not even do a panel and just put put a solid board on that wall. So I did want to talk about that. But other than that, that's pretty much it. We're really happy with the way this job came out, and we know that they're happy as well. So if you didn't follow the series, then check out my last videos where I showed you everything we could with the time given on how we did this. And we hope you'll join us on the next project, and I'll see y'all on that next project. Take care.